Brought to us by American producer, director, voice actor, editor, writer, and cartoonist Jon Schnepp, who you may know from his work on stuff like Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, and Metalocalypse, comes The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened? A kickstarted documentary that seeks to lift the veil on the mysterious Tim Burton Nick Cage Superman movie entitled Superman Lives that almost got made. Yes, that's right, kids. I know we live in interesting times now, but not so long ago, superhero movies sometimes didn't actually get made. Superman Lives has always been something of a punchline in the nerd community. Everyone knows the famous pic of Nick Cage as Superman with the long, greasy hair. Maybe you've laughed at the bits from Kevin Smith's speaking tours wherein he goes into detail about his time on the project. Heck, apparently even Bryan Singer himself, when working on Superman Returns, would show the picture of Nick Cage in an attempt to get his way on the project. Schnepp manages to gather an unbelievable amount of access to all those involved in the movie, as well as sharing amazing, never-before-seen production art and costume tests, as well as some video. People open up in ways like never before. We even get to go to Tim Burton's fancy, gothic London house. Even comic book legends like Grant Morrison and Jimmy Palmiotti get in on the action, lending this movie a bunch more nerd street cred like it even needed any. Kevin Smith is also on hand as well. After all, if it weren't for his funny stories, chances are a good number of people wouldn't even know this movie was a thing. But perhaps the most colorful person in this entire doc, and the one who ends up stealing the whole show for better or worse, is Jon Peters, the famous hairdresser turned power producer who claims to love kung fu moves and has been in over 500 street fights. He both puts to rest a ton of the crazier rumors about his mandates for the movie, while also letting the audience in on a bunch of brand new ones we didn't even know before, including but not limited to wrestling members of his staff and having his children okay artwork. And yet, you know what? For all that, when he actually talks about his love of cinema and movies as an art form, I couldn't help but kind of warm up to the guy just a little bit. They say the line between genius and insanity is a thin one, and well, maybe this guy likes to tap dance back and forth. Superman Lives also gives us a great look inside the business of making movies and how sometimes things change for just the silliest reasons. If you're a fan of costuming too, this movie offers up a ton of insight into how super suits are made both visually appealing and functional. As a fan of comics, perhaps the thing that stuck out to me most about the interviews is how everyone involved in this movie had their own vision of Superman, their own thing that they wanted to get across, be it the actor, the directors, the writer. Everyone wanted to do something different, put their own stamp on the American icon, and perhaps, and I'm just spitballing here, no one just wanted to do Superman as he's shown in the comics. Burton saw Superman as the ultimate outsider and wanted to tell that story. Cage wanted to stress the weirder aspects of the character, and Peters wanted a Superman who was a fighter. Schnepp really does do an amazing job painting a picture of this movie that never was, so your imagination is free to run wild. If I was to compare it to anything, it would be the very similar Doc Jodorowsky's Dune. By the time it's all over, you really believe Nick Cage might have been a great Superman if only he was given a chance. Oh sure, he's a weird choice and everything, but you know what? So was Michael Keaton for Batman, and everyone remembers that one quite positively. Come to think of it, the Marvel movies continue to make weird out of left field choices, and those seem to be paying off for them, don't they? Another thing the movie brings into the light, either intentionally or not, is that for people like Kevin Smith and Tim Burton, this was really the last time in their careers they attempted to push themselves creatively and get outside their own personal comfort zones. Maybe on some subliminal level, having this movie taken away from them might explain why they've fallen back into such patterns nowadays. Of course, this is just me reading into things. And I mean, really, if that's not the mark of a good documentary making you want to infer things on your own, I don't know what is. If you are a Superman fan or just someone who wants to know more about the inner workings of Hollywood, then Death of Superman Lives: What Happened is most definitely for you. Believe the hype here, Schnepp and company have truly hit upon something wonderful. This movie is available now via their website, and you should totally go there and support this movie. Not only is Death of Superman Lives a really good doc in its own right, but it actually seems to have started something of a ripple effect inside the geek film community. I'm hearing rumors now of documentaries focusing on George Miller's Justice League movie that never got made, and one focusing on all the actors and what they did after the 90s Flash show. And you know what? More power to those filmmakers, and once those movies get made, I will happily watch and review them too.